Hello, welcome to another episode of the Euro 2020 show brought to you by Over the Bar. Joining me tonight is Ben from friend of the site, We Follow the Town. So thank you very much, Ben, for joining us at short notice to dip into some Euro 2020 action. As always, it is a live show, so we've got questions in already from you on Twitter. But as we're going along live, if you want to get some questions in the live chat, by all means do so. We'll happily get those read out for you. What we'll do is we're going to touch on the round of 16 first, as you can see on your screen. We'll recap the scores, have a bit of a chat about the games, and then we'll dive into the quarterfinal preview as well. So there's going to be a lot of England chat on this one as well. You'd be glad to know, seems we're still in the tournament. But yeah, we'll rattle through these scores. So the round of 16 started off with Denmark 4, Wales 0, Italy 2, Austria 1 after extra time, Czech Republic 2, Netherlands 0, Belgium 1, Portugal 0, Croatia 3, Spain 5. Again, that was after extra time. France 3, Switzerland 4. Again, after extra time. England 2, Germany 0. And then again, after extra time, Ukraine 2, Sweden 1 to round off the last 16. We'll start off with the big one. England 2, Germany 0. Ben, we'll get straight into it. So what did you make of England's performance in the big game?
Well, my problem with England is that we're boring to watch. But if you look at it from a tactical point of view, I think Gareth Southgate got it absolutely spot on. We lined up with a 3-4-3, which in my opinion is ideal for England. And I just think, as I just said, that Gareth Southgate's got everything right on that day. I thought everybody played well. I thought Declan Rice played incredibly well. My man of the match for me was Harry Maguire. Raheem Sterling played well as well. And the sky's the limit, really, for England. I think we played a weak Germany side, a Germany side with aging players, a Germany side that would struggle in the latter stages of a tournament due to their age. But at the same time, we beat a very strong side as well. So a very impressive performance. I'm impressed with how we've been playing so far. And as I said, we can probably go very far in this tournament and, dare I say, potentially win it.
Yeah, I agree with the most part. I think Declan Rice, Declan Rice was one of them players I've really struggled to get on board with the hype that some people generate around Rice. But I thought the discipline he showed in the middle of the park, say he was on a yellow card for the most part of that game, the discipline and the way he just broke up the play and got England's attacks going, I thought it was absolutely world class the other night. And same with Harry Maguire, to say he's barely kicked the ball for the last few months for United, and he's come back inside England defence and had two really good performances, and unlucky not to get a goal the other night as well in the first half, I thought, Maguire. In terms of England then, Harry Kane finally getting that goal the other night as well. Do you think that's like a huge deal for him then? Do you think that could be the catalyst for something special for him now for the rest of the tournament?
Well, the thing about Harry Kane is that people are saying that maybe he should be benched. Maybe he needs that rest. Although, in my opinion, his influence, his leadership is probably one of the biggest qualities that we have, and it's something that we do need. So, yeah, I'm proud of Harry Kane for getting that goal. I reckon he could kick on from there. But I reckon many people do overlook his other attributes. He's very good at bringing players into play. You know, like he actually brought... in a way, actually made a lot of the build-up for Raheem Sterling's goal against Germany. He was a vital part of that move. So for me, I reckon he's been playing well. I don't think it's all about his goals. I reckon he's very good, as I just said, at bringing others into play and, yeah, just keeping the team together, especially with his leadership and other attributes. So it's great that he found that goal. As I said, hopefully he can kick on from there, as we do have plenty of scorers in our team, though we just haven't seen it yet. And, yeah, Ukraine is an ideal opportunity, really, for him to show what he can do up front.
Yeah, I think when you allude to that, Harry Kane does bring a lot to the team, not just goals. Like, he does it great for Spurs, like dropping deep, setting attacks going. And I think Southgate put a huge vote of confidence in Kane tonight. When you look at the bench, no room for Dominic Calvert-Lewin, so Harry Kane was England's only striking option, really. Well, out-and-out striker. And I know, like Rashford and can play through the middle, Sterling can do if he's asked off. But in terms of out striker, Harry Kane was given that vote of confidence by Southgate. Jack Grealish came on, another impressive cameo for himself, played a part in both the goals. What have you made of Grealish's cameos so far, and do you think he should be starting every game for England?
Yeah, It baffles me that Grealish doesn't start. I reckon he's a very talented player and a player who just provides something different. I know people will say, oh, he's a similar player to Phil Foden, but in my opinion, he's a lot more creative than Phil Foden. He offers, like other things that Phil Foden doesn't necessarily bring. But yeah, I reckon we should be starting him because, again, he is like a young Paul Gascoigne, and many people have been comparing him to Gascoigne. And again, he proved when he came off the bench that he is a fantastic player. He provided Kane with the assist. Might be wrong on that, but I think he did. So, yeah, talented player. I reckon Ukraine would be the perfect opportunity to start him. Like a team that aren't too big, yet could provide us with a challenge at the same time. So, yeah, I mean, I'd be shocked if I didn't see him start against Ukraine, although knowing Southgate, anything could happen.
Yeah, so we'll come on to the Ukraine game a little bit later in the show. Obviously, we'll talk about a bit more team selection there. One player that's been getting a lot of plaudits and, again, a lot of question marks raised over him coming into the tournament was Jordan Pickford. Currently yet to concede a goal at this tournament, well on track for the Golden Glove if England to progress. How impressive has Jordan Pickford been for you? Because he has made a few crucial saves in each game now, hasn't he?
Well, we are only the second side in European Championship history not to concede a single goal in our first 4 games. And don't get me wrong, Jordan Pickford is a vital part of that. He offers something that a lot of goalkeepers don't. He offers a lot of presence in goal. And I think a lot of people have been incredibly harsh on him simply for his form at Everton. Now, when he plays in the right system and when he's actually playing under a manager who trusts him, a manager who puts his faith into him, he can show what he can do. And I mean, he was fantastic the other night. Fantastic saves. He was commanding in goal. His distribution was fantastic. I could actually hear him barking out orders as well. So, yeah, he's probably one of the players of the tournament so far, which may be a daft thing to say, but many people do underestimate Jordan Pickford, and he is incredibly underrated, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it was tonight. He's done like the media duties for England. He's come out and people are asking about where's his form coming from. I think he's kind of put it down to wanting to prove all the doubters wrong. You can't knock the lad if that's his motivation. Hopefully that long continues for England, that he keeps putting in these performances. We'll briefly touch on Germany before we move on to the next games. But do you think this is the end of the cycle now for this German team? Because you've already mentioned about the age like Neuer, he's getting in advancing years. Hummels, Thomas Mull's come back into the fold. Do you think their time in this German team's done now?
Well, this was the end of a glittering career for Joachim Low as Germany boss. He, of course, won the World Cup in 2014 in Brazil, and now he's going to be replaced by Bayern Munich's Champions League winning coach Hansi Flick. But to be honest, I reckon Joachim Low has kind of diminished his career at Germany because he got knocked out, or Germany got knocked out by South Korea in the World Cup in 2018. Now he's been knocked out by England. England are a great team, by the way. But Germany, I just thought Germany were poor out there. They had a lot of aging players, and in a way that almost made them very unbalanced. I thought Hummels had a poor game. Neuer did as well. Toni Kroos is nowhere near the player that he used to be. Rudiger is a fantastic defender, but maybe not at the level that they really need, if that makes sense. So, yeah, there's just a huge unbalance in the team, a huge unbalance between older players and younger players. A lot of players like Timo Werner aren't getting a lot of, assists, help behind him just because of that. So, yeah, Germany were very disappointing. I think Joachim Low is a little too... I don't know, I just think that Joachim Low kind of just sticks to his game plan. He isn't really willing just to change things up and to, mix things up. But yeah, I mean, an embarrassing end of his tenure at Germany for Joachim Low. And here's a cool fact. Müller has actually appeared in each of Germany's last 26 games at major tournaments, which is the longest streak of any player for the national side. But unfortunately, in a majority of those 26 games, Germany have lost. So Müller is a fantastic player, but I reckon Joachim Low's starting 11 and the players that he chooses does need to come under some kind of scrutiny. Sorry.
Yes, right. And so I think you've hit the nail on the head there, line points. I think with with regards, I know all international teams go through this cycle, don't they? They've all gone past the best and they're all hitting the 30s, and there's that transitional period. And I think England have had theirs only between like 2014, 2016 when Hodgson was struggling, and like Gerrard's, Lampard's, Rooney's were coming to the end of their careers. And then now we've got this, like since 2018, you started to see the signs that was changing now. This group in 2020, 21. We've now got this great group of fantastic young players that are coming through. And I think Germany now at that same stage what we were a few years ago, where they're going to have to start recycling that team now and probably start afresh. Like, obviously, you've still got great young talent in there, like Havertz, Gersons, like ter Stegen's still relatively young for a keeper. He's a few years younger than Neuer, so probably time to bring him in. Leroy Sané's still got a lot of time on his side. Kimmich is still young. So there's still a lot of promise in that German side, but I think it's time there's a bit of a recycling period in there, and Hansi Flick's got a big job in his hands to get a Germany team competitive for a World Cup next year, isn't it? So it's later on next year, because of it being in Qatar. But we'll move on to arguably the biggest shock of the round of 16, and that is world champions France going out to Switzerland on penalties. Don't know why I said after extra time, but yeah, on penalties. Did you catch the game, Ben? And what did you make of, first of all, France's performance and obviously Switzerland's heroics?
Yeah, I did catch the game, and there were positives and negatives from France. Of course, the big negative being the fact that they got knocked out. First of all, they had players who performed very well for their national team. I thought Paul Pogba stood out and was arguably one of their players of the tournament. But at the same time, you wonder whether a lot of those players have become complacent, because they came up against Switzerland, a team who, okay, arguably weren't favourites coming into that game, and who many people kind of saw getting run over by France. But look, Switzerland played incredibly well. We can't take anything away from them. But France, as I just said, I thought they were a little bit complacent. I think they let their guard down and allowed Switzerland simply to get into the game. And penalties is a dangerous thing, really, because anybody could win that. And Kylian Mbappe, I also think his mentality also needs to come into question. He's a young player. He will learn from this. But yeah, I mean, I reckon mentality-wise, France weren't up for it. They were a little bit complacent. They probably thought that Switzerland would be an easy game, and ultimately that cost them. But just a quick shout out to one Switzerland player. In my opinion, and I don't know what you think, but Granit Xhaka was a stand-up player for Switzerland. He was fantastic out there, commanding. He built up play incredibly well. And yeah, he was a prominent figure in the Swiss's midfield. So Granit Xhaka, for me, is a huge shout for one of the players of the tournament. I thought he was fantastic out there and was arguably, for me, the man of the match heading out of that game.
Yeah, as soon as you mentioned the Swiss performance, I knew it was going to be Granit Xhaka. That, for me, was arguably a career-defining performance. I'm not going to say underrated, but he's obviously not hit the heights that expected of him at Arsenal, but that performance he put in the other night was phenomenal. And yeah, I think that was long overdue from Xhaka, and he really led from the front for that Swiss team and arguably was the driving force behind that. So I was kind of going to allude to this, but Matteo in the comments has kind of beaten us to the punch, really. He was saying France were cocky when they went ahead. Pogba scores a good goal and celebrated like he owned the place. They lost because of the disrespect they showed. I absolutely agree with that, Matteo. The celebration from Pogba was absolutely ridiculous, and so I'm not sure if you watch on BBC, Ben. It was a Peter Crouch comedy show that's on late on at night, and I think they counted how many different celebrations Pogba did between the goal going in and the play resuming. I think it was 5 or 6 different celebrations that Pogba did. Yeah, great goal by all means, celebrate it, but yeah, I think it bordered disrespectful towards Switzerland, very arrogant, and you kind of touched on it about Mbappe and his attitude. Me and Paul and a couple of the writers the other night were discussing the attitude of Mbappe and his ego at this moment in time. I think is massively overinflated, and I think when you're playing the French league, which isn't the most competitive, you're banging in 20 goals a season, you're not quite really seeing that league what it is. He's coming into these games with a massive sense of arrogance. The issues going into the tournament, him and Olivier Giroud, you could kind of tell there was an issue boiling below the surface with France. I think that kind of came to the forefront on Wednesday. Was it Wednesday? No, sorry, Tuesday, weren't it? France, Switzerland. But yeah, I agree that 100%, Matteo, that France were cocky with regards to that. Do you think this is just a blip for France, or similar to Germany? Do you think that this team's inside? It's still a relatively young team, the French team, isn't it?
Yeah, just if anything, more or less a learning curve for the French team. There were a lot of players going into the tournament that needed to prove themselves. Karim Benzema, given the controversy that was surrounding him before he came back into the French team, he needed to prove himself. Paul Pogba did, as he hasn't necessarily set the world alight at Manchester United. And so did Mbappe, because, he has such a huge price tag to his name, and he's arguably one of the best players in the world. So for me, I was actually surprised that they just let their guard down, that they were so cocky out there. And I think an example of that was Paul Pogba's celebration. But as you said, they do have a lot of young players playing for them. Kimpembe, Thuram, Lenglet, who plays for Barcelona. So it's all about now getting these players involved, getting the young players involved, and kind of pushing out the old guards, because, like France have a very bright future. They have some terrific young players. And in my opinion, what Deschamps should really be prioritising now is getting the youngsters involved and just seeing what they can offer to the French setup.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. It'd be interesting to see how Switzerland go in the next round, but again, we'll come on to that shortly. The other big shock of the round, so for me, it wasn't that much of a shock because I've never rated this Netherlands team coming into the tournament, but Czech Republic seen off the Netherlands 2-0. First of all, Ben, was that a red card for De Ligt in the second half? What did you think of that one?
In my opinion, it wasn't a red card because I don't think he did it with any intention. Though nowadays in football, if you see any type of challenges like that, if a player puts his studs up or goes in with any tenacity, then that is a red card. So I could see why the red card was given. But from my point of view, it wasn't a red card. But personally, I reckon they would have lost regardless, because I actually agree with you. I don't really rate this Netherlands team. They do have some fantastic players playing for them, but at the same time, and I mean no disrespect to some of their players, but they also have a bang average squad too, a squad who are getting on a bit and who haven't necessarily done anything good in the last couple of years. So yeah, I mean, it was a huge upset, of course, but at the same time, many people might have seen that coming. The Czech Republic are actually quite a young team. They have players coming up, such as Schick, who is a fantastic player. So who knows? Some people may have been putting their money on the Czech Republic.
Yeah, I think when you make a good point there, it's a bang average Holland team. And when you look at that starting 11, I don't want to say De Jong is probably the standout player. Obviously, we don't have Virgil van Dijk in this tournament, have we? De Ligt was another standout player for them. And then after that, Wijnaldum, I know he was his big move to PSG, but again, for me, he's not. I wouldn't define him as world class. There's nobody in that team apart from De Ligt, De Jong, for me, that's world class.
But then you look. Sorry to interrupt, but then you look at some other players as well. Weghorst, Promes, De Boon, Stekenberg, like all of these players are old players who have been there and done that, who are past their best, who arguably shouldn't be anywhere near the team. Daniel Marlin as well. I rate Marlin, but I don't think he's quite there yet. So there's such a huge unbalance. Weghorst is getting old, and in my opinion, he's nowhere near the level to be in the international team. So yeah, it's all about, as you said, I agree. I reckon there's a huge imbalance between the old players and the young players, and that did show.
Yeah, I think the issue now with Holland is obviously De Boer has left his job as a result of this performance. And so I think Crystal Palace fans will remember De Boer's quite short spell at Crystal Palace, and it didn't seem quite out for a big job like that. So whoever comes in next has got a big job on their hands to get a sleeping giant of European football backfiring. But rather than focusing on the negatives in the Netherlands, let's have a look at the positives of the Czech Republic. What do you think was the biggest positives performance? Like, what was the driving factor behind this huge upset?
I just think that they have a very good team, a team full of players who've had a fantastic season for their clubs. Souček was incredible. Schick as well, we already mentioned him, but he's been in incredible form for both club and country. And Kufal as well, he plays for West Ham. These are players who have actually come into the tournament on a high and in good form. So in a way, I reckon that's kind of like driven them to perform this well. I mean, should England play them, I reckon it won't be a step over. I reckon they'll be a lot better than they were when we met them in the group stages. But, this isn't a team full of mugs. This is a team full of young players who are up for the game and who are actually, ambitious, who actually want to go out there and win games. And as I've already said, my two standout players and my two player of the matches for that game was Schick and Souček. Souček is a fantastic player and he offers a lot of presence as well. So, I reckon a lot of players, and this is similar to the way France saw Switzerland, I reckon the Netherlands kind of underestimated the Czech Republic, kind of thought that going into the game, they may have seen them as like easy opponents, but they did take them by surprise. And ultimately, I said this earlier, I don't think the red card really made that much of a difference, as I thought they would have lost anyway. But ultimately, the Czech Republic were too much for them.
Yeah, I think that result for the Czech Republic now is going to give them a huge confidence boost. They've gone and beaten a team that was quite fancied to go quite far in the tournament. So I'll do their confidence no harm, and they'll fancy their chance against Denmark in the quarterfinals. Again, we'll come on to Denmark in a moment, but the Czech Republic will really fancy themselves heading into the quarterfinal. A lot of people's best game of this round will arguably be Spain 5, Croatia 3 after extra time. 8 goals split between the two teams here in an absolutely fascinating contest. We'll focus on Spain first, and even though this isn't the side of yesteryear that won the World Cup and won back-to-back European Championships, in terms of Spain's side, what have you made of them so far?
Now, Spain lined up with a 4-3-3, and they're arguably another team with a huge imbalance in their squad. They have players who are getting on but are still class, such as Sergio Busquets, but they have players up front, such as Alvaro Morata, who aren't necessarily as good as they used to be. Now, I reckon Spain have actually given Morata quite an easy ride. I reckon people have kind of, for some reason, taken the benefit of a doubt with Morata, but in my opinion, he needs to step up his game. He hasn't been that great so far this tournament. To maybe harsh, let me know in the comments if I am, but I think he should really be performing better. Look, this is a very good Spanish squad. They do have some fantastic players for them, such as Torres, Coke, Gonzalez, Laporte, who's actually French, but is playing for Spain. So this is a good team. You could potentially go all the way. But if I was England and we played them, I wouldn't be too concerned, because I reckon there are many teams left in the tournament who are actually better than Spain. And I reckon Spain, will find it tough should they come up against better opposition. So, Spain disappointing. I think their goalkeeper has been incredibly clumsy. He hasn't had the greatest of seasons for Athletic Bilbao. He's actually struggled for them. So Unai Simon, his place in the squad should really be under scrutiny. I don't know why David De Gea hasn't come in for him, but look, we could pick this apart all day, but it is what it is for Spain.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you about Morata. He's got off quite lightly so far, I think. Like you say, he's missed golden chance after golden chance. Take the whole tournament. I think it's about time that Luis Enrique started to think whether Morata is the man to be leading that line. I know these days Spain are a bit short on options leading the line. The strikers are even in the squad that are better than better than Morata for me. Rodrigo at Leeds, I know he didn't have like the most prolific of seasons for Leeds, but he's better than Morata and more clinical. He's not in the squad, so I think if Spain have got any aspirations of winning this tournament, they really need to look at the Morata situation. I agree about the point about Unai Simon as well. Obviously, we've got David De Gea and Robert Sanchez on the bench, two keepers that are well known to Premier League fans, and they'll both be licking their lips at a prospect of potentially getting in between the sticks for that quarter-final tie against Switzerland. But again, we'll have to wait and see on that one whether Enrique wants to make a change or he's happy to stick with Simon. Just before we touch on Croatia, Paul in the comments Hi guys, another great show this evening. Cheers, Paul. Gerard Moreno should be leading the line for me. Arrasabal should be left wing, and Ferran Torres on the right wing. I agree with you there, Paul. I think Moreno needs to go in through the middle, and Morata should be benched for the next game. But we'll have to wait and see on that. I think Enrique will likely stick Morata and the team that's got him to this point. But yeah, I think if they want to win it, that change does need to happen sooner rather than later. We'll touch on Croatia now. So World Cup finalists back in 2018, out in the last 16 this time, and to be fair, scraped through really on that final result against Scotland. Do you think this is the end of the road to this Croatian side, similar to Germany, and they're going to go through a period of transition now?
Yeah, they matched up with Spain with a 4-3-3. But look, I don't really rate this Croatian side. They're another side, and look, we've said this about so many sides so far in the tournament, but they're another aging team. Like Luka Modric is aging, Brozovic is also aging. And yeah, like these are some players who arguably aren't as good as they used to be. So in my opinion, it was no surprise really that they lost. I don't think that they have a lot of depth in their squad. They have players such as Mario Pasalac on the bench who aren't necessarily good enough for the international stage. So yeah, no surprise that they got knocked out. I thought in the group stages maybe they could have performed a bit better, but look, as we saw, they were obviously not up for it. I think a lot of their players are also tired from the season that they previously had. So yeah, Croatia, they did disappoint themselves, but look, they're not as good as they used to be, and I can't see them ever getting back there in the, next few years maybe.
Yeah, Croatia always seems to have standout players, don't they? But I think this is the end of this golden generation for Croatia. I think we might see Modric in one more tournament if Croatia reach the World Cup next year, but I think this will be the last time we see Modric in the European Championships. Perisic, another standout player, is getting into his advancing years, so we might only see him in another tournament. But yeah, it's a shame. It has been a really entertaining Croatia side to watch. Unfortunately, very entertaining when they beat England back in 2018, that World Cup semi-final. But yeah, I think this is probably the end of that Croatia side now, unfortunately. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see how they do in terms of their World Cup qualifications. We'll have a look now at the other home nation that made it to the last 16, Wales, who were absolutely torn apart in the first last 16 tie against Denmark, 4-0. Did you think this was a bit of a flattering scoreline on Denmark? Do you think 4-0 reflects the performance they're putting against the Welsh?
Look, I mean, Denmark are a team with a lot to play for. They have a very talented squad, and I reckon the tragedy and what they went through in the group stages has kind of fired them up, and it's kind of been almost like a motivation for them to do well in the tournament. So yeah, Kasper Dolberg was my man of the match. I thought he played incredibly well for them. But the thing with Wales is that, again, they're a squad with not a lot of quality. In my opinion, Gareth Bale is a little past it. He's still a very class player. He can still offer a lot. But arguably, in my opinion, he could have offered more for Wales, and he could have done more up front, especially creatively. Aaron Ramsey as well. I actually thought Aaron Ramsey had a good tournament. I thought he's played very, very well lately for Wales, but he didn't really offer anything in the game either, and he was actually kind of quiet for Wales. And when you look at the stats, Wales were very much in it until they ultimately went to goal down. And if you read the shot list, Wales had 11 shots compared to Denmark 16. And despite that, Wales only had one shot on target. So in a way, they need more threat up front, Wales. I think Kiefer Moore is a fantastic player. I reckon he could one day play in the Premier League. But ultimately, he's a target man. He needs creative players, finishers to play alongside with him. And ultimately, he doesn't really have that with Wales. I kind of think he struggles to play alongside players such as Gareth Bale and James. So, yeah, there's a real disconnection in that squad. I don't think the 4-2-3-1 necessarily works for Wales. But look, of course, it's a disappointment for them to get knocked out. But it's all about coming another day for Wales. I reckon they could easily make it to the World Cup, and I reckon they could surprise us again, hopefully.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to come from this Wales side. They always seem to have a bit of grit and determination about them, they're not easily beaten. So they'll be there or thereabouts for World Cup qualification. But I think it's only right we focus on Denmark here. Another fantastic performance, and one player that's really stood out for me so far in this championship for Denmark is Mikkel Damsgaard, the Sampdoria midfielder. Only 20 years of age, and he's been, for me, the standout player so far in each of the Denmark performances so far. And very creative, not afraid to go at the man. And yeah, really impressed with him so far. Is there anyone else in that Denmark team that's really stood out for you so far, Ben? So for me, the other one that stands out for me is Mæhle. Some fantastic runs from him coming from the back. But is there anyone that's stood out for you as well?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, Mæhle's been absolutely fantastic as well. He plays for Serie A club Atalanta, and of course, he had a fantastic season for him. And Chelsea have actually eyed him in the transfer window. But Højbjerg as well, he's been a very tenacious, aggressive player. He's been fantastic for Denmark. And Kaya as well, I've probably butchered his name, but he's been a terrific captain for Denmark. He's been a great influence on the pitch, and ultimately he's been incredibly solid. Christiansen as well, he's also been solid at the back. So I reckon their entire squad is actually incredibly good. I think there hasn't been one poor performer in that team. So I reckon they should all be proud of themselves. Delaney as well is another player I would quite like to bring up. He's actually been linked with Norwich and Crystal Palace. He's a fantastic player. You know, like if any of those teams get Delaney, then they'll almost be getting a coup, really, because Delaney is arguably better than any of the players that either team has. So there are plenty of standout players for Denmark. And in my opinion, this may be a very vague answer, but I think they're all standouts.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that since the tragic incident with Eriksen, they've all seemed to have really pulled together as a fantastic team. Morale there. So I think, yeah, they're doing really well. And a lot of people are predicting them to potentially get to the final. And it wouldn't be a shock to me if they were to pull that off. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that one. Just a couple more games to cover. I think 2 or 3 in total. So we'll quickly have a look at Italy, Austria. What did you make of the Italians' performance in this one, seeing as a lot of people are talking them up as potential winners?
Now, I missed that game, but Italy are arguably one of the most fantastic teams to watch, and they've probably been my favourite team to watch so far because Mancini has gotten them playing such good football. And when you look at this Italian side, they're not particularly a squad full of world-class talent. They're a squad full of players who have been there and done that. And the fact that Mancini has gotten them playing the way they have is more or less a testament to his ability as a manager. But Italy, in my opinion, are kind of like dark horses to win. I don't know whether you'd call them dark horses, but they are an incredible team. So if they went to the final, I wouldn't be surprised at all, but they've probably been the standout team so far this tournament. Beautiful football. Their players have played incredibly well, and team spirit as well. You need team spirit to succeed, and Italy definitely have that. So that's more or less why they've been performing so well. Federico Chiesa is probably a player who I would pick out from their team. His father, of course, is somebody who you would all recognise, but he was fantastic as well, and he's actually spent the majority of the tournament on the bench. But I reckon he was, from what I saw during the highlights, one of the standout players in that game against Austria.
Yeah, it was a good game, to be fair. I think Austria can consider themselves quite unlucky. Arnautovic having a goal ruled out. The correct decision probably made, but there weren't much in it anyway. And on another day, Italy might have been crashing out in that one. Just before we move on to look at the other couple of games, so John Fleming, I think Italy and Austria would be a good game. I really love watching Mancini's Italy. How good is Locatelli? They are an exciting team. Yeah, Locatelli's been a really standout player, John. So if you've seen the news today, the club, it's Sassuolo. I don't know if that's how you say it, but they've come out and said Arsenal have put a concrete offer for him, and they look like they're the favourites to sign him, and that'd be a really good sign for Arsenal, who look like they mean business in the transfer window. Looking like they're already going to get Ben White, and Locatelli be a really good signing for him as well. Dan Green, I have so much love for Mancini's Italia. Yeah, I think Italy, everyone has a bit of a soft spot for Italy, and I think it's been reignited by Mancini, who's a very likeable manager, especially from his time in England. So yeah, I think a lot of people are hoping Italy do well. Hopefully not at the expense of England, but And one last one that game, Chris Saunders, Austria a good side though. Don't count them out. I think it'll go in extra time. So this was the last 16 one, but yeah, obviously it did go to extra time, didn't it? And Austria very unfortunate in that one to be knocked out of the tournament by Italy. Next game we'll have a look at. We've got 2 more to cover, then we'll dip into the quarterfinals. Arguably the tie the round on paper. Belgium 1, Portugal 0. Obviously the superstars in this game, obviously Kevin De Bruyne, Hazard, and my opinion, the greatest of all time, Cristiano Ronaldo. What do you make of this game, Ben? Because personally, I feel Portugal should feel hard done by, because I thought on the night I felt we were the better team.
Yeah, Portugal should feel very hard done by, because they had more shots than Belgium. Portugal had 23 shots compared to Belgium's 6. And they also had more shots on target. Belgium basically scored with their one and only shot on target. So yeah, they should feel very hard done by. I actually think Portugal have played well so far this tournament. I know they're out, but I still think that they've done well. So yeah, I kind of agree with you. I reckon they should feel very hard done by. But look, the thing with Portugal is that they can always rock up again at the World Cup, and they can always bring a surprise at the World Cup as well. They had many standout players for their team. Renato Sanchez set the world alight again, and I reckon his career could almost be brought back to life, really. I heard that Arsenal have been linked to Renato Sanchez. Ruben Diaz performed well, as did Cristiano Ronaldo, who's always a terrific influence for Portugal as well. But the one disappointing player for Portugal, and the one player who should arguably be playing better than he has been, is João Felix. He's a £100 million player. He moved to Atletico Madrid for £100 million, but ultimately he hasn't really done anything so far, and he wasn't really doing anything for Portugal in the Euros, and he was also incredibly quiet. So there have been players for Portugal that have let them down, such as João Felix, but at the same time, I'm going to repeat what you just said again. They should feel hard done by. They've had players who played very well, but look, they're going to come back again, and they're probably going to have a good World Cup. Oh, sorry, I can't hear you.
So that you saying disappointing, I'd go with Bruno Fernandes as well. Hasn't turned the ball in this tournament, but I think you can kind of put that down to him not being in. Yeah, I think Bruno Fernandes is another one that should be feeling is that he gets to United. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, a few technical difficulties,
but
they're not too bad.
Could just let us know if you can hear us both.
Might be on my end, so many apologies for that.
Yeah, we'll try and soldier on. Yeah, so we'll try and crack on the best we can. If anyone in the comments as well, let us know if you can both hear us okay. What we'll do is we'll move on to the final game. Just before we do, a couple of points. One sec. So yeah, Matteo asking about how bad Kevin De Bruyne's injury is. Yes, how bad is Kevin De Bruyne's injury? I believe it's very touch and go at the minute whether he's going to be available for the quarterfinals. We'll have to wait and see on that. I think there's been a big trend in betting for the Italians. So I think a lot of people seem to think that De Bruyne is not going to make it. I think everyone else will go right down to the wire, but I think Belgium will need De Bruyne available if they have any chance of qualification. Last game of the quarterfinals. Sorry, last 16 to look at is Sweden-Ukraine. What did you make of the game, Ben? Did you rate the Ukrainian performance against Sweden?
Yeah, Ukraine are another team with an amazing mentality. They're a team who should never be underestimated. And in my opinion, they could easily cause an upset against England. Because, they're a talented side. They're a side with a lot to play for. And in a way, no pressure at all. Because nobody would have thought that they'll go this far. Yarmolenko has been fantastic for them. I know he hasn't really done well at West Ham, but he's been a fantastic influence for them. So he's obviously their danger man. But yeah, they were fantastic against Austria, and yeah, it was all about team mentality. Now their manager, Eyriey, I can't pronounce his surname, but their manager, basically, he said we shouldn't be scared of England. So that is more or less a clue into how they're going to play against us and into how tough that game is going to be as well. So could they be dark horses? Probably not, but they're a fantastic team, as I said, with a fantastic, like mentality as well. So yeah, like they were fantastic, and I reckon we could expect a very difficult game against them. But Austria, just to mention their opponents. Sorry, let me just get it up because I did write notes. Sweden. Here we are. Apologies about that. Sweden were a little bit disappointing. I reckon Sweden actually have a very talented team. Isaac is a fantastic young player. Many people have compared him to Zlatan Ibrahimovic. And they have old guards as well, such as Seb Larsson, who have also played very, very well and who are also fantastic influences. So in a way, they should feel kind of let down by their team performance against Ukraine. Danielson getting sent off, in my opinion, did have a huge impact, as it could have gone either way. But look, Ukraine were the better team at the end of the day. And if either of them won, if that makes sense, then I would have been happy because they both played well. And, like Sweden were unlucky, but Ukraine also deserved the win.
Yeah, I think Sweden were quite unlucky, to be fair. I think Forsberg had quite a few chances for Sweden, hit the woodwork a few times. And I think they can count themselves quite unfortunate. But I think that horror tackle and the red card did kind of change the game. But yeah, Ukraine are going to be tough opponents on Saturday. They look very difficult to beat, so that'll be interesting to see. Just one comment's coming regarding the Ukraine game. So from Ben Morris, hopefully Ukraine are tired after going 120 minutes. They were dropping like flies in that game and seemed to get injuries. Tell you what, though, Zinchenko is class. Zinchenko has been fantastic for Ukraine, and Yarmolenko been rolling back the years as well. He could be injured for the game on Saturday, which could be a huge positive for England if Yarmolenko doesn't make it. Obviously, Zinchenko has been quality so far, and obviously Paul will be able to tell you more about Zinchenko and his performances, obviously with him being a City fan. I'm sure he'll pop up in the comments to fly the flag for you, Zinchenko at City. That's pretty much our roundup of the last 16. We'll quickly preview the quarterfinals before we jump into the questions that you guys have sent in on Twitter and the live chat. So thank you very much for getting those in. So with regards to the quarterfinals, this is your lineup. I'll go through it in order as well. So tomorrow night we've got Switzerland and Spain, and then Belgium and Italy. Where do you see these ones going? We'll start with Switzerland, Spain. How do you see this one going, Ben?
Oh, God, that's a tough one, to be fair. I mean, I reckon Switzerland could easily win that one because I always mention mentality and I always mention the team that is always up for it. I reckon Switzerland will be up for that game, and I reckon they'll be planning on upsetting Spain. Spain is still a good team, but I don't think they're good enough to necessarily win the competition. So in my opinion, and this could be a ridiculous shout, let me know in the comments if this is a silly shout, but I reckon Switzerland could potentially win that game.
Yeah, I think one thing to bear in mind for this one, though, is Switzerland and Spain both went the distance. Well, they both went to 120 minutes, didn't they? The other night, but I think the Swiss one, I think Spain's physically draining. The Switzerland will be physically and mentally draining, won't it? Like, they put so much into that game on Monday night, and I think that could be quite telling in the end, how much they actually had to put into that performance. But I'm going to go the opposite way. I think Spain will come through on that. I think Switzerland might just be a little bit under the cosh simply because of the performance they had to put in the other night. This is probably the toughest one for me to predict in this round. Belgium against Italy. How do you see this one going?
Oh, another tough one. Like whenever you ask me who's going to win, I keep sighing because I literally have no idea who's going to win. So Belgium, Italy, I'm genuinely stumped. I would say draw if it could be a draw. but I'm going to say Belgium. Italy are a fantastic side, but we saw the other day that they did actually struggle against their opposition. So Italy do have the ability not to turn up. I reckon if Italy did get knocked out, Roberto Mancini still deserves all the plaudits, because this is an Italy team who are no good really, and Mancini has almost gone into that squad and has almost like reinvigorated them. So yeah, for me, Belgium will win. Belgium are a very good team and will probably make it to the finals. But Italy, should they lose, shouldn't feel too hard done by, because they have exceeded a lot of expectations and they have been a fantastic team. So yeah, Belgium, in my opinion, will win that. But I want to say a draw, but you can't.
I think it's another one I'm going to go against here, but I think Italy will get the win here. I think Italy one of them teams. It's not one that's like an Italian side of yesteryear that's like littered with like stars. It's a very solid Italian team built on a very strong defence, and I think Belgium might find them a bit of a tough nut to crack, and Italy will nick this 1-0, I reckon. Yeah, it'll be for me. This is arguably the game of the round, and I'm really looking forward to this one tomorrow night. Czech Republic against Denmark. Who are you going with in this one?
I'm going to go with Denmark for this game. This is probably one of the only games which I can give you an answer straight away for, because Denmark are, and I've used the word mentality so much that it might as well be used as jargon, but I reckon Denmark are mentality kings. I reckon they're a fantastic team, and they haven't really shown a weakness so far this tournament. The Czech Republic will be up for the game, but I reckon Denmark just has the extra initiative to go and beat them. So for me, Denmark will win that one. Although if the Czech Republic win, I wouldn't be too surprised, as they're also a team that could potentially spring a surprise. But yeah, Denmark should beat the Czech Republic.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I think this Denmark side are onto something special. I just think they're riding a crest of wave, and they just seem like so together after what they've had to go through. I think that is really going to carry them quite far into the tournament. And I think any team that beats them will have to play at the top of their game to beat them. And then obviously the last one, the big one for the English fans, is England against the Ukraine in Rome on Saturday night to finish off the quarterfinals. Ben, is it a formality England win, or do you think the Ukrainians will be a tough nut to crack?
I was saying the other day to my friend, we were actually talking after the England-Germany game. He said to me, Ben, this is probably one of the biggest games we've ever witnessed for the England national team. And I said to him, well, if we lose to Ukraine, then that result won't really mean anything. I reckon Ukraine are a good team, and I reckon they could potentially upset us, because, we all saw what happened against Iceland in the 2016 European Championships, and Iceland ultimately upset us. Now, Gareth Southgate heading into this game does have a few selection issues to ponder over. Harry Maguire is a player who he might potentially risk. Harry Maguire has, of course, had his injury problems, so he was fantastic against Germany. They're saying that I reckon we will win the game, though Ukraine will offer a different threat. So Gareth Southgate might as well switch again to a back four. I don't know what you think.
I think this is what I think. Mark, who comes on the show quite a bit as well, obviously one of our main writers and video appearance makers, he was saying that he thinks we should be going more attacking into Ukraine. I'm kind of inclined to agree with him. Probably go back to the 4-3-3 and probably take the game to Ukraine a bit more and assert our dominance early doors and try and get this game done as quickly as possible. But like you were saying, and Paul's popped up in the comments as well, about losing to Ukraine, the Germany win will count for nothing. I agree with both of you on that. It would be typical England to lose this game after that performance against Germany. I'm not predicting we're going to lose, but I wouldn't be shocked if we lose, because that would just be typical England, wouldn't it? But I think England will get through this one quite comfortably. I think we'll win 2-0 and set up a semi-final with Denmark. But yeah, that's our round of the quarterfinals and our predictions for that. Also, we'll be back to discuss that after the quarterfinals have occurred. So don't worry about that. We'll get that video out to you guys. But before we go, obviously we've got the questions that have come in from yourselves on Twitter and the comments on the video. So again, thank you very much for getting those in. So yeah, we'll jump straight to the Twitter ones first of all. So first question is from John Fleming. Can England afford to rotate against the Ukraine side that played 120 minutes and picked up a few injuries? Or is that too much of a risk, and would we be underestimating them? What do you think on that one, Ben?
Yeah, I reckon we could definitely afford to rotate. You have players such as Jadon Sancho, Marcus Rashford, even Jack Grealish, who are fantastic players, who are arguably some of our best players who haven't really had a look in yet. So I reckon if they started, they'll be playing in the European Championship game, so they will be fired up. They will have the initiative to go out there and surprise people and kind of give Southgate something to ponder upon for the semi-finals. So I think we could definitely afford to rotate. Now, at the back, that is a different question because I did mention Harry Maguire and whether Southgate should pick him. But I reckon we should more or less keep the back four the same. If we did take out Maguire, then I'd actually replace him with Tyrone Mings, as Tyrone Mings has actually played so far this tournament and he's actually played well. But if I was Southgate, I'd keep the back four the same. I'd give the likes of Sancho and Grealish again because, as I just said, they are fantastic players and they've been a little hard done by not to get a look in. And I'd also give maybe Calvert-Lewin a run off the bench. Calvert-Lewin has had a fantastic season for Everton. So if we're in the 70th minute, for example, and we're 0-0 or 1-0 down, then I'd bring Calvert-Lewin on just to see what he can do because I reckon he has a goal in him for England. So simply, yes, I reckon we can afford to rotate.
I'm a bit more cautious on this. I don't think we should be underestimating the Ukrainians. I think we're probably right to take a couple. I think Maguire and then one of Phillips or Rice need to be taken at the final line. I think if we go to a back four, I think Harry Maguire is the one that should make way. Obviously, Stones would remain in there, and obviously whoever he wants to partner him with, it'll probably be Tyrone Mings, I imagine, seeing as how it's gone so far. And then Phillips probably to come out, well, Phillips or Rice to come out and Henderson in. Henderson in need of game time, and obviously then he's securing Phillips or Rice who are on yellow cards. I think Jack Grealish needs to be starting personally as well. But that's the tough one. Who's he coming for, given the performance of the night? Saka had another good game. Sterling's been probably our player of the tournament as well. So yeah, it's a very difficult one. Obviously, Southgate gets paid the big money, doesn't he, to make these decisions, and yeah, I'll have to wait and see what he goes with on Saturday night. It's hard to predict the Southgate lineup in an England lineup in it. So yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see what happens there. Next question is from Matteo. I think I'll take this one, Ben. See, once I read the question, you'll probably understand why. How many goals are Spain going to beat Switzerland by? And do you think we might see some more surprise in the quarterfinals like we did in the last 16 games or less drama? Seeing as you've predicted a Switzerland win, Ben, I'll go with the Spain one. I think Spain, if they are going to win, I think they'll nick a 1-0 win. Mainly due to the possession game that Spain like to play. I think they could probably strangle the life out of Switzerland a bit and get a 1-0 win. In terms of surprises from the last 16, I don't think there'll be many, to be fair. I think most of these will go with the form book. And you'll see, obviously, it depends on what side the fence from that Italy-Belgium game, but I think the other ones are a lot more straightforward. I think it'll go with the form book for the quarterfinals, personally. Next question is from Dan Green. Now that France are out, who's winning it? So if you had to pick a team now, Ben, who's winning the Euros?
Another tough one. I'm going to say England, as I want to be optimistic and I want to give us all the optimism for the game on Saturday. But ultimately, I do rate this Italian side. I know I said that they could lose, but when thinking about it, they're so talented. Mancini is such a good manager, especially with the way he's played. So listening to what you said earlier, I'm actually going to say Italy because you have changed my mind and I reckon Italy could potentially go on to win this. But I'm going to keep to my original answer. I'm going to be incredibly optimistic and I hope everybody in the chat will be optimistic as well. I'm going to say England will go on and win the Euros. Fingers crossed, that is.
Yeah, I think it's this heart over head kind of thing. My heart wants me to say England, but I think my head it's a bit torn. I think the final will be Italy against England, personally, and yeah, I think if England don't win it, it will be Italy personally. Yeah, that's my prediction. Yeah, I'll stick with that anyway. And then I think we kind of touched on it. The question you sent in, Jonathan, is it coming home or what? I think we're both of the impression we think it could, but it is England after all, and so it's not. If we are going to bring it home, it's not going to be an easy ride, is it? That's for sure. But that's all the questions that have come in on Twitter. So thank you very much for getting those in. Quite a few that have come in on the live chat, some really good ones as well. So the first one is from Matteo. So why does Gareth Southgate not play Bellingham, Sancho? Why take them if he isn't playing them? They're good players. Do you agree with that, Ben?
To an extent, I reckon both players are different cases. I reckon for Sancho, as he's been involved in a transfer saga with Manchester United, Gareth Southgate is probably just taking him out of the spotlight just so he can deal with that, because mentally for a young player, that can be incredibly distracting, and I don't really think you want to see that on the football field. And for Bellingham, look, he's a young player, 17 years old. Without doubt, he's a fantastic player and he could potentially be world class. But look, we do have some fantastic options there as well. And when you're 17 years old, you do kind of need to control his game time, because he could potentially get overwhelmed out there. And again, he's a young player who needs experience. So I reckon Gareth Southgate has done the right thing for both of them. I do want to see Sancho a bit more, though, now that it is sorted out between him and Manchester United. But look, ultimately, we need to have faith in Southgate. He's got everything right so far. So, yeah, I reckon he's done the right thing.
Yeah, I think with regards to Sancho, I think we might see a little bit more of him, especially on Saturday. I think with Bellingham, I think we all need to kind of put into perspective. He turned 18 on Tuesday, so obviously still very young. It's his breakthrough season with Dortmund, so he's got a lot of tournaments over the coming years, and the way he's improving week on week for Dortmund, he's going to be a key feature for that England midfield for many years to come. So yeah, I'm not worried about the fact Bellingham's not playing. I think the fact he's in the squad is a huge achievement. But yeah, I'm really impressed with how Bellingham's coming along. But I'm not too concerned that he's not played much football so far. In terms of the rest of the questions, I think we kind of covered them as and when we've come across them during the show. I think the only one we've not covered is a question from Ben Morris. So if it's not England, then who is winning it? We've already covered that, Ben, so you're happy with that answer. We also put who you guys saying will finish the top scorer. So you're predicting for the Golden Boot, Ben?
For the Golden Boots, that is actually a very, very difficult one. I reckon for me, it's either going to be Raheem Sterling or Romelu Lukaku. I reckon it's more likely that Romelu Lukaku will finish top scorer. And let me just say, Romelu Lukaku is actually quite underrated. Nobody really calls him world class. He doesn't really get mentioned in the same bracket as a lot of these world class players. So yeah, he'll probably finish top scorer, and I'll rate him highly. He is a fantastic player.
Yeah, I'd agree with the fact that what you say about Lukaku, very underrated, and I think a lot of people, mainly United fans, are holding that spell against him at Old Trafford, and even then he was still quite prolific for United. His goals to game ratio was still impressive, but for Inter, he's been incredible. For Belgium, he's their record top scorer, and he's got plenty of years left in him, so he's only going to continue to stretch that record. And yeah, he's never mentioned that conversation, but he should be. To answer the question about Golden Boot, it's one of three players for me: Lukaku, Sterling, and personally, I think Ronaldo could potentially hold on to that top spot. What you've got to bear in mind, if say Belgium go out on tomorrow night against Italy, there's no Italy players in the conversation at the minute for the Golden Boot. Sterling, he could potentially continue to get the goals, especially considering we've got Ukraine at the weekend. If Ukraine comes out a bit laggy after their extra time performance, then you never know, he could bag a couple. But you look after that, and there's not many players who you think could challenge to get to 5 goals. And 5 goals is usually quite, it puts you in the mix for the Golden Boot. I think Harry Kane won the Golden Boot in 2018. That was with either 5 or 6 goals, weren't it?
6 goals, yeah.
So Ronaldo could potentially hold on to that golden boot going out in the last 16. I think the only player, it's going to be one of those three: Ronaldo, Lukaku, or Sterling for me, anyway. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching. Again, that's all the questions covered. Again, it's been a fantastic show to have you guys involved with the comments and getting questions, and we really appreciate the kind words you always put in the chat. It really does help us guys do the shows, and it's always a nice confidence boost for us anyway. Thank you very much, Ben, for joining us again this evening. Been a great guest as per usual. We will be back. It'll either be Sunday or Monday, I imagine, with a roundup of the quarterfinals. We'll go through everything in a little bit more detail, not for our thoughts to the quarterfinals, and start to get to the semi-finals. And let's hope and pray England are in there. Let's not try and get too carried away. Hopefully anyway. But the usual to strengthen the show. In the meantime, if we're getting all the written content out, Paul's doing a great job of doing some morning roundups for us on the website. So if you by any chance miss any of the games, or you like to have a read up on the games the day after, Paul's morning roundups are where it's at. So make sure you check that out. Make sure, if you don't already, head over to our Twitter at @OverTheBarFB. Make sure you drop us a follow there for all the new content we're getting out. And we're doing, obviously, Paul again doing some great coverage of the Euros during the games as well. So make sure you check all that out. And also, whilst you're on YouTube, there's the URL for the YouTube channel. Make sure you drop us a subscribe, like any videos, click the bell to be notified of all the latest content. We'll make sure we're putting plenty of advance warning about the quarterfinal review, semi-final preview video. We'll let you know who's doing it, when it will be on. Just make sure you follow our social media channels, and you'll be the first people to know when that is available. But thank you very much, everyone, for joining us again this evening. Enjoy the quarterfinals, and hopefully we'll be talking about another England win on Sunday or Monday, whenever that will be. Enjoy the games, and we will see you all very, very soon.
Thank you.